everything and I have nothing, but I'm done watching from the shadows.
The night Grace became a monster, she was still human enough to cry. But let me take you back to the beginning, to when the two sisters had nothing in this world except each other. Grace and Mercy were orphans. Their father died when a tree fell on him during Harmattan, crushing his chest before he could even scream. Their mother followed him 2 years later, her body wasted by an illness no herbalist could name. The night she died, she gripped both girls by the wrists, her fingers cold as river stones, and whispered, "Stay together. Promise me you will stay together." Mercy, who was 14, nodded through her tears. Grace, who was 12, said nothing. She only stared at the flame of the palm oil lamp, watching shadows dance on the wall. After the burial, no relatives came forward. The village whispered that their father's people blamed their mother for his death, said she was cursed, that misfortune clung to her like smoke. And their mother's family? They had disowned her long ago for marrying a poor man. So, the girls were left with a crumbling hut, a pot with a crack in it, and each other. Mercy became the provider. She was strong and never complained. Every morning before the cock crowed, she was already in someone's farm, her wrapper tied tight around her waist, her hands deep in the soil. She planted, she harvested, she carried water on her head until her neck burned. When people paid her in food, she brought it home and divided it carefully, always giving Grace the bigger portion. "You need your strength," Mercy would say, smiling even though her own stomach was hollow. Grace took the food without thanking her. While Mercy worked herself to exhaustion, Grace did the lighter tasks. She swept compounds for the old women, she fetched firewood from the edge of the forest, but her heart was never in it. While she worked, she watched. She watched the other girls in the village, the ones with fathers and mothers, the ones who wore bright wrappers and had oil in their hair. She watched them laugh. She watched them eat until they were full, and something dark began to grow inside her. At night, lying on the mat they shared, Grace would stare at the roof and feel her throat tighten with bitterness. Why did other people have so much while she had nothing? Why did Mercy smile when they had every reason to weep? It made no sense. It felt like an insult. Mercy never noticed. She was too busy trying to keep them alive. Years passed like this. The sisters grew into women. Mercy's beauty was the quiet kind, warm eyes, a gentle voice, hands that were rough but kind. Grace's beauty was sharper, more striking, but there was something in her eyes that made people look away, something hungry. Then, one day, everything changed. A stranger came to the village. His name was Daniel, and he was a trader from the next town. He came with his brothers to buy palm oil and yams, and he stayed at the compound of the village chief. Mercy was walking in the chief's courtyard when Daniel first saw her. She was carrying a clay pot of water on her head, her back straight, her face calm. Daniel stopped mid-sentence. "Who is that?" he asked the chief. The chief laughed. "That is Mercy, an orphan. She worked for many families here. A good girl, hardworking." "Is she married?" "No." Daniel watched her until she disappeared into the kitchen. That evening, he asked the chief to arrange a meeting. Within a week, he asked Mercy to marry him. Mercy was shocked. "But I have nothing. No dowry, no family." "You have yourself. That is enough." When Mercy told Grace the news, she expected her sister to be happy. Instead, her Grace face went cold. "You are leaving me?" Grace whispered. "No, never. Daniel said you can come live with us. He has a big house. You will never have to work in the farms again." "I do not want his charity." "Grace, please." But Grace turned her back and said nothing more. If you want to see how jealousy can destroy even the strongest bond, stay with me. Subscribe now because this story will break your heart before it heals it. The wedding happened a month later. The whole village came. Mercy wore a white wrapper borrowed from the chief's wife, and flowers were woven in her hair. She looked like something out of a dream. Grace stood at the edge of the crowd watching. She did not smile, she did not clap. She only watched as her sister, the one who shared every meal, every struggle, every dark night, walked away into a better life. And Grace felt something inside her crack open. That night, alone in the mat they used to share, Grace sat in the darkness and wept. But her tears were not sad, they were bitter. They tasted like poison. Why her? She whispered to the empty room. Why not me? And somewhere deep in the forest, something heard her.
3 months after Mercy's wedding, Grace stopped sleeping. Every night, she lay on her mat and stared into the blackness, her mind spinning with thoughts she could not control. Mercy had sent word that she was pregnant. The village women whispered about it in the market, their voices sweet with admiration. That Mercy, see how God has blessed her. After suffering so much as a child, now she will know happiness. Her husband adores her. I heard he built her a new kitchen. Grace heard every word, and every word was a needle in her skin. She tried to be happy for her sister. She truly did. But happiness would not come. Instead, what came was rage, a silent, sitting rage that made her hands tremble and her chest tight. Why should Mercy have everything while she had nothing? They were both orphans. They had both suffered. So why was Mercy rewarded and Grace forgotten? It was not fair. One evening, Grace went to visit Mercy. Daniel's house was large and painted white with an iron gate and a garden full of flowers. When Grace arrived, Mercy ran to embrace her, her belly round and full. "Sister, I have missed you so much. Come, sit. I will bring you food." The house smelled like fresh stew and fried plantain. The chairs were cushioned. There were curtains on the windows. Grace sat stiffly and looked around, her jaw tight. Mercy brought her a plate piled high with jollof rice, chicken, and salad. "Eat, please. You look so thin." Grace looked at the food. She looked at her sister's glowing face, and something inside her twisted. "I cannot stay," Grace said, standing abruptly. "What? But you just arrived." "I have things to do." Mercy's face fell. "Grace, please, talk to me. Ever since the wedding, you have been distant. Have I done something wrong?" Grace wanted to scream. "Yes, you were born favored. You were born to be loved, while I was born to be forgotten." But instead, she said, "I am fine. I just need to go." She left without eating. She left without saying goodbye. That night, the hunger inside Grace became unbearable. Not hunger for food, hunger for something else, something she could not name. She paced her small hut like a trapped animal, her nails digging into her palms. Then she heard it. A voice. Soft, smooth, like oil poured on water. "Why do you suffer alone?" Grace froze. The voice had come from outside. She crept to the door and peered into the darkness. At first, she saw nothing. Then slowly, a shape emerged from the shadows. It was a woman, tall, wrapped in black cloth. Her face was beautiful, but her eyes were wrong. They did not reflect the moonlight. They swallowed it. "Who are you?" Grace whispered. The woman smiled. "I am someone who helps those who have been wronged." "I do not know what you mean." "Yes, you do." The woman stepped closer. "You are angry. You are tired of watching others be blessed while you are ignored. You want what your sister has." Grace's heart pounded. "How do you know?" "I know because I have seen it 1,000 times. I know because envy has a scent and yours is strong." The woman tilted her head. "I can help you, Grace." "Help me how?" "I can give you what you deserve. Beauty, wealth, a husband, respect. Everything your sister has, you can have too. All you need to do is ask." Grace's heart felt quicken. "What do you want in return?" The woman's smile widened. "Nothing you will miss." Grace should have run. Every instinct told her to slam the door and pray until morning, but the hunger inside her was louder than her fear. "What do I have to do?" The woman reached into her wrapper and pulled out a small gourd. It was carved with strange symbols, and when she shook it, something liquid sloshed inside. "Drink this at midnight for 7 nights. Do not stop, even if you feel strange. By the end, you will have everything you have ever wanted." Grace took the gourd. It was warm in her hands, almost alive. "Will it hurt?" she asked. The woman did not answer. She only turned and walked back into the forest, her shape dissolving into the dark like smoke. Grace stood there for a long time, staring at the god. Then she went inside, bolted the door, and waited for midnight. When the time came, she uncorked the gourd. The liquid inside was thick and black, and it smelled like rotting fruit. Her stomach turned, but she lifted it to her lips, and she drank. The taste was horrible, bitter and sour and wrong. It burned her throat as it went down. She gagged but forced herself to swallow. When the gourd was empty, she collapsed on her mat, her body trembling. That night, she dreamt of teeth and claws and blood.
By the third night, Grace began to change. It started small. Her appetite grew fierce. She found herself waking in the middle of the night, her stomach growling so loudly it sounded like an animal. She ate everything in her hut, leftover gari, dried fish, even the raw cassava she had been saving. But no matter how much she ate, the hunger remained. Her senses sharpened. She could hear conversations from across the village. She could smell suya roasting 3 compounds away. At night, her eyes adjusted to the darkness so well she did not need a lamp. She could see every insect crawling on the wall, every spider spinning its web. Her strength increased. One morning, she lifted a water pot that usually required 2 women to carry. She lifted it with one hand and it felt light as a basket. But it was her thoughts that frightened her most. Dark thoughts, violent thoughts, thoughts that did not feel like her own. When she saw Mercy in the market, waddling slowly with her pregnant belly, Grace felt a flash of rage so intense she had to dig her nails into her palms to keep from screaming. The other women fussed over Mercy, touching her stomach, predicting whether the baby would be a boy or girl. Grace watched from a distance, her teeth clenched. "She does not deserve this," a voice whispered in her mind. "She is no better than you. She is nothing special." Grace shook her head, trying to clear it, but the voice would not leave. On the 5th night, her body began to change. She woke up scratching herself. Her skin itched everywhere, as if insects were crawling beneath it. When she looked down at her arms, she gasped. Her skin had darkened in places, rough and scaly like a lizard's. Her fingernails had grown long and sharp, almost like claws. "No," she whispered. "No, no, no." She tried to file them down, but they grew back within minutes. She wrapped her hands in cloth and did not leave the hut the next day. By the 6th night, her teeth began to sharpen. She felt them in her mouth, pointed, wrong. When she touched them with her tongue, she tasted blood. Her gums ached. Her jaw felt too large for her face. She looked at her reflection in a bowl of water and barely recognized herself. Her eyes had changed too. They glowed faintly in the dark, yellow like a cat's. "What is happening to me?" she sobbed. But she already knew. The woman in black had lied. This was not a blessing. This was a curse. On the 7th night, Grace drank the last of the liquid. She had considered throwing it away, but the hunger inside her was unbearable now. It clawed at her insides like a living thing, demanding to be fed. After she drank, the pain began. Her bones cracked and shifted. Her spine arched. She fell to the ground, convulsing, her mouth open in a silent scream. Her skin split and reformed. Her limbs stretched. Her face elongated. When it was over, she lay on the floor, panting. She tried to stand, but her body did not obey. She looked down and saw that her hands were no longer hands. They were claws, long, black, tipped with razors. She crawled to the bowl of water and looked at her reflection. The thing staring back at her was not human. It had her eyes, but everything else was wrong. Its face was twisted, its mouth full of fangs. Its body was hunched and covered in dark, leathery skin. It looked like something from a nightmare. Grace opened her mouth to scream, but what came out was a howl. And then the hunger took over. She crashed through the door of her hut and ran into the night. Her mind was no longer her own. She moved on instinct, driven by a need she could not name. The village was silent, everyone asleep. She climbed onto the roof of a hut and crouched there, sniffing the air. She smelled food, meat, blood. She leapt from roof to roof, moving faster than any human could.
She found a goat tied outside the compound and tore into it, her teeth sinking deep. The taste of blood filled her mouth, warm and rich, and for a moment the hunger eased. But only for a moment. When she finished, she looked up and saw a light in the distance. Mercy's house. The hunger roared louder. Go, take what is yours. And Grace, no longer in control of herself, obeyed.
Mercy woke to the sound of scratching. At first, she thought it was a rat. The rainy season always brought them into the house, no matter how tightly Daniel sealed the walls. She lay still, her hand resting on her swollen belly, listening. The scratching came again, but it was not small and frantic like a rat. It was slow, deliberate, like nails dragging across wood. Mercy's skin prickled. Daniel, she whispered, shaking her husband's shoulder. Daniel, wake up! He groaned and rolled over. What is it? Listen. They both went silent. The scratching stopped. For a moment, there was nothing but the sound of their breathing. Then they heard it, a low guttural growl just outside the window. Daniel sat up, his face tight. Stay here. No, do not go out there. But he was already reaching for the machete he kept beside the bed. He moved toward the door, his steps careful. Mercy followed him, her heart hammering in her chest. Daniel opened the door slowly and peered outside. The compound was dark. The moon was hidden behind clouds. He stepped out, raising the machete. Who is there? He called. Silence. Then, from the shadows, something moved. It was fast, too fast. Daniel barely had time to react before it lunged at him. He swung the machete and the blade connected with something solid. The creature shrieked and leaped back, disappearing into the darkness. Daniel stumbled backward, his chest heaving. Get inside, now! Mercy pulled him in and slammed the door. They bolted it and pushed the table against it for good measure. Daniel's hands were shaking. What was that? Mercy whispered. I do not know, but it was not human. They did not sleep for the rest of the night. The next morning, the village was in chaos. 3 goats had been slaughtered, their bodies torn apart. A chicken coop had been destroyed. And worst of all, a child had been attacked. The boy had been sleeping outside when something grabbed him. His screams woke his parents and they drove the creature away with fire, but not before it left deep claw marks across the boy's chest. The village elders called an emergency meeting. Everyone gathered in the chief's compound, their faces pale with fear. What kind of animal is this? One man asked. It is not an animal, an old woman said. Her name was Mama Zena, and she was known for her knowledge of spirits and curses. I have seen the marks. No animal makes cuts like that. Then what is it? Mama Zena's face was grim. It is an abomination, something cursed, something that was once human but is no longer. The crowd murmured in fear. How do we stop it? The chief asked. We must find it before it kills someone, and when we find it, we must burn it. Mercy felt a chill run through her. She thought of her sister. She had not seen Grace in weeks. Every time she sent word for her to visit, Grace refused. Something was wrong, but she did not know what. After the meeting, she went to Grace's hut. The door was broken, hanging off its hinges. Inside, the place was destroyed. The mat was shredded, the walls were scratched, and there was blood on the floor. Grace, Mercy called, her voice trembling. No answer. She stepped inside carefully, her eyes scanning the wreckage. Then she saw it. The gourd. It was lying in the corner, empty. She picked it up and smelled it. Her stomach turned. It reeked of dark magic. Oh, Grace, what have you done? That night, the creature came again. This time, it did not go for the goats. It went straight for Mercy's house. Mercy was sitting by the window, unable to sleep, when she saw it. A shape moving in the darkness, hunched and wrung. It climbed the fence with ease, its claws scraping against the iron. Then it stopped and looked directly at her. Their eyes met, and Mercy saw something that made her blood freeze. The creature's eyes were human, and they were familiar. Grace, Mercy whispered. The creature tilted its head, as if it recognized the name. Then it opened its mouth and let out a sound that was half howl, half sob. Mercy's tears came fast. No, no, please God, no. The creature lunged at the window. Mercy screamed. Daniel came running with a torch, and the creature hissed and retreated, disappearing into the night. But Mercy knew the truth now. The monster haunting the village was her sister.
Mercy did not tell anyone. How could she? If the village knew that Grace was the creature, they would hunt her down and burn her alive.
Mercy could not let that happen. Grace was still her sister, no matter what she had become. But Mercy also knew she could not let the attacks continue. So she went to Mama Zina. The old woman lived at the edge of the village, in a hut surrounded by herbs and bones and things Mercy did not want to look at too closely. When Mercy told her everything, about Grace, about the god, about the curse, Mama Zina closed her eyes and sighed deeply. "Your sister made a deal with a forest spirit," Mama Zina said. "These spirits feed on envy. They promise power, but what they give is corruption." "Can it be undone?" Mercy asked desperately. "Maybe, but it will not be easy." Mama Zina stood and began gathering items: bitter leaf, palm oil, a white cloth, and a small knife. "The curse is fed by her envy. To break it, she must face the source of that envy. She must face you." Mercy's heart sank. "Me?" "Yes, you are what she wanted to be. You are what the curse twisted her into hunting. If you can reach the part of her that is still human, if you can make her remember who she was before the jealousy consumed her, the curse may break." "And if I cannot?" Mama Zina did not answer. That night, Mercy prepared herself. She wrapped the white cloth around her shoulders and took the items Mama Zina had given her. Daniel tried to stop her. "You cannot go out there alone. That thing will kill you." "That thing is my sister." "It is a monster." Mercy touched his face gently. "She became a monster because I did not see her pain. Because I was so grateful for my own blessings, I forgot that she was suffering. I will not abandon her now." Daniel's eyes filled with tears, but he let her go. Mercy walked into the forest alone. She carried a torch and the light flickered against the trees. The forest was silent, as if it were holding its breath. "Grace," Mercy called. "I know you are here. Please, sister, come out." For a long moment, there was nothing. Then she heard it, the low growl, the scrape of claws on bark. The creature emerged from the shadows, its body hunched and twisted. Its eyes glowed yellow in the torchlight. Mercy's hands trembled, but she forced herself to stay calm. "Grace, it is me. It is Mercy." The creature snarled and took a step forward. "I know you are angry," Mercy said, her voice breaking. "I know you have suffered, and I did not see it. I was so focused on my own happiness that I forgot to check if you are happy too. I am sorry, Grace. I am so, so sorry." The creature stopped. Its head tilted. "I should have stayed with you," Mercy continued, tears streaming down her face. "I should have refused to marry until I knew you were taken care of. But I was selfish. I thought you would be happy for me, and I did not see that you were breaking inside." The creature let out a sound, a low, mournful wail. "But you are still my sister," Mercy said. "No matter what you have become, you are still the girl who held my hand when we buried our mother. You are still the girl who shared every meal with me, even when there was barely enough. You are still Grace." The creature's body began to tremble. Its scales fell away. The claws retracted. The twisted limbs straightened. And slowly, painfully, Grace returned. When it was over, she lay in Mercy's arms, naked and trembling, her face wet with tears. "I am sorry. I am so, so sorry." "Shh," Mercy whispered, rocking her gently. "I know. I know." They stayed there until the sun began to rise. Grace never fully recovered from what she had done. The memories of her time as a monster haunted her, and she carried the scars, both inside and out, for the rest of her life. But Mercy stood by her. She brought Grace into her home, and Daniel, despite his fear, accepted her. Grace learned to live with her guilt. She worked hard to make amends, helping those she had hurt, caring for the boy she had injured. Slowly, the village forgave her, not because they forgot, but because they saw her remorse was real. And Mercy learned a lesson too. She learned that blessings are not just for enjoying, they are for sharing. She learned that love means paying attention even when you are happy. She learned that envy is born in the shadows of neglect. Years later, when Mercy's daughter asked her, "Mama, why do you always check on Auntie Grace?" Mercy smiled and said, "Because love is not just a feeling,
It is a choice we make every single day. If you see someone struggling while you are thriving, do not turn away. Reach out, ask how they are, share what you have, because the monster is not born in a moment, it is built brick by brick from every time we fail to see each other's pain. If this story touched your heart, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And remember, the greatest way to protect yourself from envy is to make sure no one around you feels forgotten. Subscribe for more stories that teach us how to live and love better. Until next time, may your heart be full and your hands open.